Hello, and welcome to another episode of Tuesdays with Tally. This is episode 75, and I'm your host, Brian Tally. The mission and the goal of this podcast is to bring an engaging conversation that will add value to the lives of everyday people. We will inspire, encourage, educate, and tell the stories of America's finest men and women in an effort to motivate you to live your life to its fullest potential. Be sure to follow us on social media and on Spotify. The online information and handles are all located on the scrolling ticker at the bottom portion of your screen. Be sure to like and share the program as well. You can also support the program by going to Anchor FM or Spotify and clicking the support button. Folks, the holidays are here, and it's time to punch that Christmas list. And when you do, consider this book that I recently came across, authored by Marine veteran Chris Whittemore, titled Terror to Triumph. Now close your eyes and imagine this journey through the lenses of a Marine scout sniper as he unveils the horrors of the mean streets of Ramadi, Iraq in 2005. From losing fellow Marines and escaping death as you silently move through the streets, dodging IEDs, enemy snipers, and the chaos associated with the country's first election. Continue the journey through Fallujah, Iraq in 2007, where the fighting turns more inward and the struggles faced when balancing the losses in war and at home. Finish the ride as you fly as a UH-1 crew chief, door gunner, through the unforgiving country of the Helmand province, Afghanistan. Fly through countless hours of combat missions in support of multiple countries, militaries, and the scars associated with flying the wounded and fallen back to base. Take the final journey by facing the reality of the struggles that servicemen and servicewomen face with coping with horrors of war, the fight against the stigma of being broken, and finding a way to transition back into the civilian world. This is the hectic journey that one Marine and his families go through after each deployment, finding a way to stay strong through the darkest times and triumphing from the darkness and finding success against all odds. This is a true story, and all events in this book are 100% factual, as seen through the eyes of Chris himself. Let's support this Marine veteran and his book by buying Terror to Triumph today. It's available everywhere books are sold online. Terror to Triumph. That's Terror to Triumph by Chris Whittemore. Folks, we have a very special guest joining us on today's program. We're joined by the president and the founder of the Waves Project, Steve Rubin. Steve has been in the transportation industry for over 40 years, working in nearly every aspect of the business, from driving a truck to managing a UPS facility and owning a freight logistics business. His passion since 2000 has been working part-time as a scuba diving instructor. Steve and his wife, Barbara, founded the Waves Project to bring the therapeutic value of scuba to help wounded veterans. His desire is to create a community of divers who are both veterans and non-veterans who will provide friendship and support to each other to help heal body, mind, and spirit. Steve is a SSI instructor trainer, a PADI certified IDC staff instructor, first aid and CPR instructor, and HSA certified instructor. With that, we are joined by Steve Rubin, the founder and the president of the Waves Project. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm hanging in there. Today we celebrate day 103 of this brand new podcast. You are episode 75. I don't know if any of those numbers correlate with you, but
glad to be here.
Your number has been called, sir.
Yes, sir.
We have a very, very special program today, guys, because scuba diving, what I've been told, is something that will take away your pain, your mental pain, your physical pain, your emotional pain. And we're going to speak to the guy behind it all, of the Waves Project today. And I know you're based down there in Southern California, correct?
Yes, sir. We are based out of Temecula, California.
Temecula, yeah. I'm quite familiar with Temecula, as I used to live in Temecula a few different times in my life. We lived there in 98, 99, and then we moved back there in 2013. Actually had some kids graduate from Great Oak High School there in Temecula.
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
Right across the street from Pachanga there. So
Yes,
that's a good area. Outstanding. Steve, we've got a lot to talk about, and I want to get started here. So I know there's so much life value that you can add to so many veterans out there today through your program. But before we get into that, I want to know a little bit about you and who you are. Where did you grow up, and what was your life like as a kid?
I grew up in a great time. I grew up in Hawthorne, California. We were about on the border of Redondo Beach, 4 or 5 miles from the ocean. We spent a lot of time at the ocean as a kid. Growing up there, had a great childhood. Just everything was good. I was very, very fortunate. My mom and dad were great people, supported me in pretty much everything or anything that I wanted to do. By no means, he was a middle class type laborer. So we watched our pennies, but they always seemed to be able to support myself and my sister and everything that we tried to accomplish.
That was a great time indeed, growing up. The Leave It to Beaver type era, correct?
It was a different time. It was, and I know it's not the time of innocence, but it just seemed like the world was a different place. As a kid growing up, I don't care, what an adult did or for a living, but you respected your adults. You respected teachers, you respected law enforcement, you respected aunts, uncles, whatever. And it was just a different time.
Absolutely. I often reminisce on my childhood as well. I grew up in San Diego, climbing the canyons of San Diego and running the train tracks. I often refer to it as the Goonies and Stand By Me. That was my life growing up as a kid. And it was so much fun. But, that's when neighborhoods came together and neighbors would deliver cookies. And it just seemed like such simpler times in the 80s. But I know you're a few years older than me. I'm so...
Well, and that's the reason why I brought up that, water was always in my life growing up. We spent a lot of time with family at Lake Mead, water skiing. We were 4 or 5 miles from the beach. And, as kids, we get on our bikes and we would ride to the beach and spend all day. And, we had during the summer, we had one rule. I needed to be home for dinner. And then after dinner, I needed to be in by the streetlights when I was younger. And then as you got older, that changed. But, you talk to so many parents now in today's society, and the kids don't even come out of the backyard. They can't go anywhere. Everybody is so tense and tight and
fearful.
Very fearful. We didn't have that.
No, me and my little brother, we would jump on our beach cruisers. So we would ride down to PB. We'd ride down to Mission Beach. Yeah, we would stay the day, and my mom say, just check in with us. So I'd go to the payphone and I would call collect, and it would say, this is Mom, I'm checking in with you. Do you accept this call? And she'd say no, and she knows that we're good for the next 4 hours. So that's how we roll. So you're not a veteran.
I am not.
But you have been a massive champion to the veteran community. What inspired you to get into helping heal our wounded veterans?
A young man, a corporal Marine that I met about, it's now 10 years ago. As we talk about how I grew up, in the South Bay area of Southern California, I met a gentleman probably when I was in my mid-20s, and we both at the time living in Hermosa Beach, and we became really good friends. I was working for United Parcel Service at the time. He was with United Airlines at the time. and we just stayed connected, as we got married and we had kids. And his daughter in 2009, I believe, or 10, married a Marine. And on that Marine's second deployment, he was injured in an IED blast. And he lost both of his legs and the three fingers on his left hand. And up until this time, I really had never met John. But, the phone calls went out about what had happened. And, the prayers went out. And his wife, Courtney, at the time, as she was being flown to Bethesda, she got on a website that was called Caring Bridge. And if you wanted to know John's progress, or if you wanted to learn about what was happening, then every time she made a post or a journal entry, you would get an email. So we kind of followed, his progress as he was being flown from Bagram to Germany, and then into, like I said, Walter Reed. And then finally, his last hospital was Balboa in San Diego. Her last post was, they're going to stay in the Southern California area, halfway between San Diego and Moreno Valley, where her parents were at. And they were going to move to Temecula. So I responded to that email and said, Courtney, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm a good friend of your dad's. If you guys need any help, just let me know. And she wrote back and said, the house that we're going to move into has a pink room and a purple room. And the boys aren't going to like that. So I wrote it back and said, let me know when you're going to move in. We'll take care of that. I reached out to my brother-in-law. He was a Navy vet, and he was all on board. And then my wife at the time was the secretary of the Temecula Rotary Noon Club. And when she heard what I was doing, she said, they just developed a military committee. They would love to do something like this. So 12 of us, the day that they were moving in, we went over and we painted those rooms. And the got to know John, sat down, talked to John for a couple hours. And then the next Saturday, John calls me and he has a question for me. And I told him, I said, John, I'm at a place right now to where I can't write anything down, but if you'll email me, I'll get that information back to you. And he said, where are you at? And I said, I'm over at Catalina. And he goes, oh, that's a nice place. I like Catalina. What are you doing over there? And I said, I'm a scuba instructor. I'm doing a scuba class. And he said, I'm envious. I want to do that. And I said, okay, we'll remedy that. So the following week, he and I talked a couple more times, and I found out that he was really serious. And then I started to realize, and being quite naive at the time, I thought, well, at this time, I've probably been a dive pro for probably 10 years. And I thought, as long as I get him in the water, everything will be okay. The logistical thing is getting him in and out of the water. So I started talking to people and started to go down a road to where I knew I needed some additional training. So that's where HSA came in. It's Handicap Scuba Association. So we went as instructors to get certified as handicap scuba instructors and learn how to deal with different injuries and disabilities. So we went to Denver, flew to Denver, Colorado, did that, came back, and I called John and I said, all right, John, I said, I think I'm ready. And, but you're going to be my guinea pig. Well, he's probably a 27, 28-year-old Marine at this time. And he's like, I'm all in. And, we got him in the pool. The paper came out, the newspaper, and they took photos and they did a story. And we got him in the ocean and he loved it. And he started talking to friends about it. And the word just kind of went out. And I was getting contacted via emails and phones that other veterans wanted to do this. So really, it wasn't something that we sat down and planned out and said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. It's been a roller coaster ride from day one. And we got to the point to where my wife and I sat down and said, we can't afford to keep on paying for this. So if we're going to continue to do this, because there was a lot of demand and there was a lot of, we were seeing the benefits. We really didn't know too much about it when we first started. But one thing that we knew is that we were able to share our not compassion, but our passion for scuba diving with these veterans. So let's get them in the water and let's get them excited about what we are excited about. So we filed for our 501c3. 6 months later, was approved. We started to do grassroots type fundraising and tried to learn the aspects of running a nonprofit. Never have done a nonprofit before, never been involved with a nonprofit. So we kind of been learning as we're going, but we've been very blessed, and our doors, the doors have been open almost everywhere we go before we ever get there. And, we live in a great community. We're on the back side, the back gate of Camp Pendleton. So we have a lot of Marine, retired Navy, active duty Marine and Navy here. So we're just in a military type community, and we just get a lot of support from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It is a very great area there in Southern California. It's a jewel for sure. You're in the transportation and logistics industry, where you specialize in the movement of freight and cargo. And being a scuba diver and a scuba dive instructor, that was all just hobbies, correct?
Yeah, at the beginning, that was just a hobby. So, like I said earlier, I started I guess you could call it my career with transportation with United Parcel Service. Left United Parcel Service and then started to work for the Conway companies, which was owned by Consolidated Freightways. And then from there, I opened up my own logistics business, and then been doing that, since 1986, and still do it today. I've done different aspects in that business, to where at the beginning I was doing everything from containerized freight coming into the United States, distribution, and truckload, less than truckload freight. Now I pretty much just specialize in less than truckload freight. So I still have a few customers that I've had for years, and so I still help them out with moving their freight around the U.S. But my biggest passion right now, and where we spend 8 days a week, is building waves.
Mm-hmm. How do you find the strength and the energy after you put in a full week's work running your own business as an entrepreneur, as a successful entrepreneur in Southern California, where the demand is very high for transportation, logistics, the movement of freight? Where do you find this reserve energy to go out and support the military, veteran, and first responder community with all of your volunteer actions?
Yeah, it's a great question, because sometimes I ask myself the same thing. But bottom line, what gets us going every day, every weekend, is the stories that we hear from the veterans that we work with, and the benefits that they receive once they have entered our program now. So when we first started, we were let me back up. WAVES is an acronym, stands for Wounded American Veterans Experience Scuba. So when we first started, it was just that. It was a open water experience. We would get the veteran in the pool, work with them in the pool, where we do our confined water training, so to speak, kind of like an airline pilot would use I just drew a blank. I'm sorry.
Hey, it happens to the best of us. Happens to me all the time.
Yeah. Where they train at? It'll come to me. It'll drop in my head.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we take them out to the ocean, do 4 ocean dives. And that was it. It was, congratulations, thank you very much. But then we started hearing the stories of how much it would benefit um, the veteran in various ways. And, when you think about scuba diving, it's easy to understand how somebody like John, that was an amputee, or somebody that is a paraplegic, or has lower back or leg injuries. Once we get them in water and they become perfectly buoyant, there's no gravity underwater. So
And
now,
zero gravity. Yeah.
yes, so that disabled diver now becomes just as abled as the able-bodied dive buddy that he's diving with. So, so now it brings in it takes away their disability. So obviously, while we're on deck, they got to deal with the wheelchairs. They got to deal with the prosthetics, whatever they're dealing with. But once we're underwater, everybody is equal. So we started to learn about that. And then we started to do some more fundraising. We learned how to start grant writing. And then in 2014, we heard about a paper that was written by Dr. Alan Kaplan and Kennedy from Johns Hopkins, that they actually did a study where they took 19-wheeled divers down to the Grand Caymans. 10 of them participated in scuba. The other 9 were case. So the other 9 did everything else that they did during the week, but they did not participate in the scuba diving. And Dr. Kaplan and Dr. Kennedy were both neurologists. And what they were looking for with the wheel divers, they were working with paraplegics. They were looking for improvement using water pressure in their patients' daily lives. So they were looking for like better muscle spasticity. They were looking at bladder sensations, different things that would happen when they would take somebody underwater. Well, Dr. Kaplan wrote in his thesis, or in his paper, one thing that he found miraculous, that all 10 veterans that participated in diving, 100%, all 10, showed up to an 80% reduction in post-traumatic stress symptoms, not for one day, not for 3 days, not for a week, but up for 6 weeks after they dove. So when we looked at that, we read that, we thought, okay, we have a community now in the veteran community that we at the time called the silent injury. Because, you see somebody in a wheelchair, you see somebody with a prosthetic, that they've been injured. It's kind of obvious. But we have a lot of veterans that walk around every day of the week that you run into at the store, you run into at the post office, wherever, but you don't know what they're dealing with. And they're dealing with post-traumatic stress. And so we started to then focus on that. And since then, we've done 3 studies on our own. And the ocean is miraculous, and it really helps calm down the anxieties once somebody has gotten certified, and it really helps them focus. And then you add the camaraderie of other veterans that are going through similar situations in the dive group, and they get to become friends. They dive together, and they just tend to help each other out. And when they're starting to get a little bit agitated, or they need to know they need therapy, either they're calling their veteran dive buddy now, or the wife is calling us saying, get him in the water. So it's get in the water. And, it's a really a great and fun way to go through a therapy session. So it's just, you're not sitting around a table talking about what you're going through, but you're letting the ocean, and there's a lot of physics behind it. We call it partial pressure. There's things that are going on underwater that kind of help just calm you down and take care of that. So over the years, that experience of open water now has led to where we train all levels now, all the way up to and including instructor. So we've been very blessed with grants and community support and corporate support that are really they're concerned about our veteran community. They want to help.
Sure, sure. And I know that the underwater world is definitely therapeutic. Back before my injury, I used to go snorkeling all the time, and I just love doing that. And it's very relaxing, to be in some clear waters and check out the fish. And again, you're not thinking about anything except for your next breath, and visually looking around at your surroundings. So I can testify to the snorkeling piece, at least, that it is very therapeutic, and I could see where the healing piece could definitely come in. Now, I want you to describe a day of diving to our listeners, from when the veterans show up to when they leave. And do you ever notice a positive change in the behavior of these veterans after they leave, or from when they arrive, from when they leave? I want you to explain that transformation.
Yeah, we see it almost in every situation. We see it on every class that we do. And we're running classes here, 2 or 3 classes a month.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll get somebody to come in, and you don't know why, or at this point in time, what motivated them to do scuba diving or to come in. A lot of times it's a friend that told them that they've done it and you got to do this. But they'll come in and they'll sit and they got their arms crossed, very apprehensive, very questioning of what's going to happen. And obviously, we're dealing with these veterans that are already having issues with anxiety. And now we have got to take them out of our natural environment where we sit here and talk and breathe and everything, to where we're going to now take them underwater. And none of us have gills. So we got to learn how to survive now underwater. So that's a little bit of anxiety. But I got to tell you that guy or gal that is sitting there, not saying too much on the first day of classroom, is totally transformed after their first open water experience and after coming out of the water, smiling, engaged, talking to the other veterans, talking to their now newfounded friends. Brian, scuba in its own right is a very social sport. And there's a lot of camaraderie just within a scuba diver meeting another scuba diver, because now they have something that is
they got a commonality there.
Yeah, exactly. So now you bring that veteran in that obviously has the camaraderie with other veterans because they've been through similar issues and similar experiences. Now you're bringing them into a whole new and a life-changing experience that now they build new friendships and a new way of life. Scuba diving, literally, it's either going to be a great experience for somebody, or we're going to see it change their lives.
So it's a win-win situation.
It is. And you ask what keeps us going, and it's hearing those stories, it's seeing those smiles, it's seeing that transformation when they first come in to when they're done with their open water, saying what's next. And then we're moving them on to what we call continuing ed, which is different specialties. We have a program now where we the veterans that we train, not only here but in Houston, that actually start buying their gear and start diving, and they see the benefit, and they tell us about the benefit that they're seeing or they're feeling and what it's done in their lives. The veterans that we had just trained, for instance, like in 2021, we're taking 8 of them to Roatan, Honduras in April of next year. We do this every year. And it sounds like a big vacation. No, we're just going there for fun. Well, that's not it, even though we're having fun. But we go down there, and when they come back, they're master divers. So we make sure that they've been trained in 5 specialties while they're down there, and we do somewhere between 20 and 30 dives. So they come back, they're very competent now divers, and they just want to continue on and keep on diving. We've come up with a slogan here that we do what we call vitamin C dives, vitamin SEA dives. So we'll charter boats on a monthly basis, and we get the veterans out, guys that love it, and get them out with them and their buddies. And we didn't talk about that. The scuba diving is a buddy sport. And one thing that when we set up waves, we talked to veterans, and we talked to veterans about other veteran organizations. And, there's a ton of great veteran organizations out there that really do a lot for our veteran community. But there was two things that we kept on hearing is that the veteran themselves goes on a trip or an excursion or something, but the family stays at home, and the family is dealing with their injuries, or the family is also dealing with what the veteran is going through. And we decided, we thought, here's an opportunity for us, because we're a buddy sport. So we will train the veteran, and the veteran, how the veteran qualifies is a veteran that has a service-connected injury. So it really doesn't matter what that injury is, but as long as they're rated by the VA, they qualify to enter our program. And they can bring a buddy of their choice. So it could be their spouse, it could be a significant other, it could be their child, it could be a battle buddy, it could be the guy across the street. So the buddy does not have to be a veteran, but because it's a buddy sport and we're investing so much time and money into this veteran, we want him or her to be able to dive with a friend of theirs or somebody that they know. The other thing that we heard is there's a lot of organizations out there that just work with post 9/11 veterans. And that was the other thing that we said, okay, we don't care what campaign. If you got a rating, you're welcome to come to the Waves project and become a part of the program. So we've trained Vietnam vets, Desert Storm, and all the way to post 9/11.
It's got to make you feel just terrific, Steve, when you're out there on those boats. And I know not all the time you're going to be completely, underwater and all that stuff, because your job is to observe, a lot of these veterans that are on your trips. And you've got to have these life moments where you just sit back and you see that transformation between these veterans from day one to the last day, or from sun up to sundown, and just know that, you know what, I'm doing it. And I'm living in the moment, and I'm experiencing these great moments of transformation and rebuilding and helping rebuild these lives of folks that may be classified to themselves as being broken. And to give them all these tools and techniques and the camaraderie and the friends and everything that they need to help remedy their own issues. I mean, it's got to be, just an amazing feeling. And, like you said, hey, look, I never served my country. But like I always tell people, there's more than one ways to serve your country. Just because you weren't in the military doesn't mean that you don't serve. Now, you serve every single day, but you serve in your community. You serve those who served for us and our country and our flag and our liberty and our prosperity and everything else like that. So what you do is, it's a very selfless act, and I'm sure you're very proud of what you've built, and again, you've got some phenomenal volunteers that work across the country as well to help support this mission and this vision of yours.
Absolutely. It's not a one-man job. It's far from that. The volunteers that we have, the people that come alongside, veterans and non-veterans that want to give back to the veteran community is tremendous. Like they're how big their hearts are and how they want to give back. Each one of them have a story that links back to a family member or somebody they grew up with that served and now they want to give back. When we're first training that veteran, we talked about that transformation. That's what, fills your heart and your spirit when you see the transformation. But then you get to know them and you become friends. And, we go out, we charter a boat. Like I said, we're not training and we're just out. 20 of us or 22 of us, 23 of us are having a good time diving. And, I try to tell people, it's incredible because everybody will get in the water and you got the whole group in the water. But as soon as you go underwater, it's just you, right? It's just right here, how you're thinking, you're doing self-talk, you're breathing. So now there's oxygen therapy. You can see everybody else, but there's no communication going on. Mm-hmm. There's no phone, there's no iPad, there's no computer, there's no television. It's just you in your own head. And that's a part of the therapy. And then once we train these veterans, we have a great relationship with the National Park Service. And, they're very interested in helping out our veteran community. And we do different projects with them. So if there's a body of water in a national park, they manage that body of water. So we've done mapping projects at Lake Mead. For instance, so now we're coming alongside of great divers, archaeologists, and we're mapping the aggregate plant that was utilized to build Hoover Dam in the 30s. It sits in 80 feet of water. It did when we were doing it. So we mapped that out and we helped do that. We've done buoy maintenance in Fort Jefferson and the Dry Tortugas. We've done buoy inspections in Lake Superior at Isle Royale. Our female vets just did a trip to Biscayne National Park in Florida and pulled out close to 4 tons of debris as an ocean cleanup. So this is a part of our vitamin C dives, so now you're spending weeks really developing really close relationships with 4 to 8 other veterans, and they really become tight. And we call that's giving back. Now we're serving again the people of the United States. So, our pillars are training, equipment, and serving back. And we were able to do that with ocean cleanups and working alongside the national parks. So it's a whole program, and, and it changes people's lives. It really does.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've seen it firsthand, what the Waves Project has done to a good friend of mine, Jeff Picard, who, was from San Diego and lived in Murrieta. And he came to you because he needed help. And I think Natasha signed him up. And not only did he go through the program successfully, but he left the program believing in it so much for what it did for him that he is now running the state of Texas for you as an ambassador or whatever you want to call him. But, like you have it right here, the Waves Project, you will discover the underwater world. And that's where the anxieties and the depressions and all that, the physical pain, the emotional, the mental pain and trauma will subside because you're not thinking about it. You're thinking about breathing. You're thinking about self-talk. And then you recover through the adventure. That's the camaraderie. That's the friendships. That's the bonding. That's when these stories start to come out from their past experiences. And then rebuilding. That's the families and that's the relationships. When veterans are going through a crisis mode or when they're feeling anxious or they're depressed, they're self-isolating in a room. And guess what? Everybody that loves that veteran is going through that same problem as the veteran, because if you love him or her and you see them struggling and hurting, you are going to struggle and you're going to hurt as well. And so when you're rebuilding these families, you're rebuilding relationships. And also the relationships outside the home, because now you're not self-isolating anymore. Now you're out maybe grabbing a coffee or you're grabbing, lunch with friends, or you're going golfing or you're going fishing, whatever it may be. And again, it's the families, because you can bring a family member. The veteran can bring a family member, whether it's a son, a daughter, a wife, whatever it may be. So again, what you're doing and the way you have this program structured is amazing. And like you said, hey, look, I've never ran a 501c3 before. I'm not really sure on how to do it or what to do and what works. But in the contracting world, that's called an as-built. You're kind of going through the motions and you're seeing what sticks. And when it starts to work, you start to develop your own blueprint on how to successfully run a program like this. And you've done it very well in a very short period of time. You're in Florida, you're in Texas, you're in California, and you are having a lot of veterans sign up for this program because it does work. Now, walk us through the highs and the lows of having a 501c3, because this program is built by donors and it's built by the veteran supporters that give generous donations to help keep these veterans, these folks in the military, and these first responders and their families going through the program. What's it like trying to get through to doing fundraisers and having money come in so you can continue to do this for the veteran community?
That's the stressful part. And that's probably why we like to dive, to get over that anxiety.
Yeah, you've got your own therapy.
Yeah, we got our own therapy. No, we have to raise the money.
Right.
And you did mention how we are operating now in Houston. Jeff's doing a wonderful job in Houston. We're expanding now in Florida. And with all these expansions, and as we grow here in California, you need more money. We don't have a product to sell to raise the money. We have to go out and talk to people, talk to the community. We talk to civics organizations. We go out and we go out to the it's a two-armed thing. We go out to the community and talk to the community. And we go out to the veteran side, like the vet centers, the VA hospitals, to recruit and get the information to the veterans' hands. And we're kind of feeling a little bit of the economy right now as donors are also feeling the pinch. Their stock market's down. Inflation is up. They have less to give, so we're starting to feel a little bit of that also. So, that'll have an impact. But like I said, we're involved with grassroots fundraising. Met you down in Houston when Jeff was doing his annual fundraiser of a golf tournament. We just did ours on Veterans Day last Friday. But we do everything we can and anything we can to raise awareness and to raise money. We're going to be going into our Giving Tuesday end of the year campaign here, starting Tuesday after Thanksgiving, and just try to raise as much money as we can.
Now, you said that you didn't have a product, to sell or anything like that, but I think the product is the actual veteran themselves, a rehabilitated veteran. So have you ever considered maybe, of course, through the permission of the veteran, having a veteran that shows up that is going through a very, very traumatic time in their life, and maybe having them go on video for 2 minutes before they even dive and say, "Hi, my name is so-and-so. I suffer from this and that. It's hard to get through the days." And then maybe 6 months down the road of them continuously going through your program and diving, maybe do another video, a 2-minute video. And that's 4 minutes that you could play at your fundraisers to show the dramatic rehabilitation and the recreation and the reinvention of what you actually do. And that is your product. It's putting somebody back out into the civilian world that is going to be a contributor. And they're going to, of course, they're going to start to give back too, because you have completely changed their lives. And I think that could be a tremendous asset to do something like that.
We do have a lot of videos. I like the 2-minute thing because that'd be short and easy to do. But we have videos of the veterans that have worked in various national parks, and they talk about their stories. They give their testimonies, so to speak, of where they were at and what diving has done to them, or the Waves organization, the Waves Project organization has done for them. So we have those out there. We've gotten some that are hard to watch. Some are very easy to watch, but some get we have one that it's of 3 veterans that really went through a lot of stuff, and to sit through and watch that you end up, I got to tell you, it brings tears to
It's
your eyes.
painful.
It is very painful. But I like the short 2-minute thing. So we just maybe got to start working on that. I like that idea. Thank you.
Just trying to say, our product is in the veteran themselves. Our product is in their family. Our product is in these active duty, Marines or sailors or whoever you're taking out. Our product is in the rehabilitation itself. And we have so much brokenness in our world, and it's just not in the military, community. It's just not in the veteran community. It's just not the first responder community. We all go through traumatic type experiences every single day. And, and there's just, like you said, there's so much trauma out there in this dark world. So what you're doing, I know you're doing God's work and trying to bring light to the lives of, these folks that need it the most. Now, who do you look to for strength? And do you have a mentor, Steve?
Just other people in the industry. There's a gentleman that helped me through a lot of this and helped with training and has done work in the disability segment. He works with a lot with Craig Hospital. Scott Taylor has been somebody that helped me, another instructor trainer out of Denver that we went and got certified for the HSA. He helped us out a lot as we started to navigate through this and how to work with people that has disabilities. He's a very successful SCUBA center operator, probably one of the largest in the United States. So, he helped a lot. We got a lot of great people. Dave Conlon from the National Parks, I look at him to bounce stuff off of. We have an advisory board of people that, like I said, have a heart for the veteran community that kind of help us go. And there's 4 of us here in Waves. That we bounce things off of everybody to keep things going and try to, like you said, reinvent the next step, reinvent the next part of the program.
Right, folks, we're joined by Steve Rubin, the founder and the president of the Waves Project. If you are a volunteer, you want to volunteer your time and your services to the Waves Project, visit them online today at wavesproject.org. That's wavesproject.org. If you are a veteran in need of some diving therapy, contact them as well on their website, wavesproject.org. Are you looking for, are you currently actively looking for veterans to go out on this program, or do you have a wait list?
We have a wait list. Both in Houston and in Florida and in California. And we kind of developed that wait list because people start signing up at this part of the year, this time of the year, November, December. We don't do too much training during this time of the year. We do diving with the people that we've already trained, but the holidays get in the way of scheduling. To do an open water class, you're probably looking at about 40 to 50 hours of commitment. And with people traveling, families coming in, and people going out to see families, we have never been successful at this time of year. So we just did our last training for the year this past weekend. And then we will, depending on what weather looks like in January, February, that will keep us out of the ocean for a bit. But then once our rainy season, our 3 inches of rain are over with, then we're back into the training schedule. So, and it's just, we are adding to the schedule all the time to try to keep up with the demand, but there is a small waiting time now.
Sure. So you heard it there, folks. You need to sign up now. Get your all of your medical waivers and all your permission slips all squared away, so you can dive this spring and this summer. And of course, wait your time on the waiting list because this is a very high demand experience because of the success rate that they do have in this program. Now, we have just a few minutes left here, and this has been a great interview, but I just want to ask you uh, what type of advice or what type of wisdom can you leave with our listeners today, Steve?
Well, you know, we learned this in the veteran community, and then we witnessed it as a country and a world with the pandemic, and we saw that you know how we were kind of shut in, and we saw what that did to our kids that weren't going to school and socializing anymore. We saw what it did in our own lives. I mean, we're seeing the effect of that right now, where people are willing to do and go anywhere right now because of not feeling good on the shut in. But we've known that now with our veteran community for years. And
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that the key is, you know, and our key is we use the platform of scuba diving to get our veterans out of the house, to get out, get something done. We generate that confidence that once you started something, you can finish it, and this leads on to other things. This is the part in the where you hear, you know, a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. So getting out and starting to do something leads to other things, and we've seen this with our veterans coming out and re-engaging back into society, re-engaging back into the workforce. You know, think about somebody spending 12, 14, 18, 20 years of their life in the military, and then in one day, boom, their life changes. And for the last 20 years, they've lived one way, and now that way is no longer
Mm-hmm.
the same, and they've got to reinvent. It's the same if somebody worked for FedEx for 20 years, and then once they retire, now what do I do? You know, you gotta regenerate your passions. You got to find something that you can get involved with, people that you like, that now have purpose and bring purpose to your life.
I think that's a great analogy you used on the pandemic. Now the whole country can know what it's like to be a broken veteran
Mhm.
or a broken first responder. And I use the word broken because I mean, I was one of those guys that sat in my chair for years and years and self isolated and never came out. And there was no pandemic going on
Yeah.
then. So I think that's a very good way to, to explain that. And like you said, our children have taken a hit on this, and there's a lot of suicide in our country at
Mhm.
an all-time high, not only for veterans but for children and civilians and first responders. It's a very sad time in our world. It's a very sad time in our country. It's a very sad time in our communities. But again, it's having folks like you who are the selfless servants in their community that are bringing hope and awareness to the people that need it the most. And that's what this program is all about: getting out of your comfort zone, getting out of your comfort zone, and getting out of that room and doing the small things to make your way up to that life of gratitude, to live in that life of gratitude by just getting 1% better than you were yesterday. And I like to use this. Look, if you're in a 1,000 square foot room and you need to tile the floor, so you're going to need 1,000 tiles, but you get one tile a day. How are those tiles going to be laid? If you only have to lay one tile per day, you're going to lay that tile perfectly every single day. And that's what getting 1% better does. It doesn't come in one false swoop. You can't wake up one day and be broken and say, I'm going to be perfect the next day. It takes years of doing the same thing over and over, the repetition, the getting better, the going on the walks, the eating better, the mindfulness, all that stuff, folks, to get 1% better each and every day. And to be a man and to be a woman of your word, and to do what you're going to say, what you're going to do, and be that good influence in the lives of others. So thank you for joining us today, Steve. We sincerely appreciate everything you have done and continue to do in the veteran community. Your service, sacrifice, and dedication is truly admirable.
Thank you, Brian. I really enjoyed being on your show, and look forward to seeing you years to come.
Yeah, yes, sir. Until next time, for Tuesdays with Tally, this is Brian Tally. Good night, Semper Fi, and God.